Okay, so this is part two. The man talks about overpopulation. Now, first of all, I want to say this that overpopulation is there are two versions of overpopulation as a reason for antinatalism. In its intrinsic way, where we consider asymmetry and suffering, overpopulation is always there. Even if there are two people on the planet, it is overpopulation. So we were overpopulated to start with. But I think this man is criticizing overpopulation in its extrinsic or external way, which is that we are overpopulated from environmental point of view, etc. And he says that overpopulation is like a second coming of Jesus. It always says every year it says that there is going to be a catastrophe, and it never happens. So we are not really overpopulated. So the thing is that overpopulation does not mean that we are going to spill over the earth and there is going to necessarily going to be a disaster of any sort. What it means is that there are people suffering because we are too many. So we are 7 billion of us here. And if all 7 billion of us have to live the same lifestyle as the lifestyle enjoyed by people in developed world, it is very much clear that we would need more than one planet. In some cases, we'll need three planets, in some cases, we need five planets, etc. And in that sense, we are already overpopulated. There are people who are suffering, who can't, there is inequality. There are people who live very nice lifestyles, nothing wrong about it, nothing, no opposition to it. But then there are people who are deprived of that lifestyle. And in that sense, we are overpopulated because we can't accommodate everyone to have the same comfortable lifestyle. So then he says there is no such thing as overpopulation because if we get overpopulated, we'll just die out. That's natural mechanism. Yeah, well, you're missing the point then. Yeah, we will die out if we get too overpopulated. That's the way how nature works. But is that the path of minimal suffering? Would that not cause suffering? You're not missing the point of reducing suffering here. Why not to avoid that situation in the first place? Then he says number of people is not the problem because he talks in terms of arable land, and he says that we have enough land to cultivate food for everyone. And then he also talks about all people can fit in an area of size of Texas. This is a classical ignorant defense made by people who deny, for example, global warming or environmental degradation. It's not about land or arable land is only one of the factors in whole calculation of carbon footprint. And as I said that if all 7 billion of us have to live the same lifestyle as someone enjoyed in say US or anywhere in the developed world, we will require more than one planet. It is quite evident. So yeah, you just can't take one factor and say, yeah, there's no overpopulation. But nonetheless, I still want to stress this is an external factor, this is an extrinsic factor. If, Bennett's argument and asymmetry says that even if there were two people, we are overpopulated. Anyway, so then he makes some kind of racist joke about white people, and I don't really understand why he's joking about it. He says that overpopulated people anyway are white Western uh, people who are studying liberal arts. That's quite a racist joke, you know. And it doesn't matter whether it's against white people or black people or brown people, or it doesn't matter what people. It's a racist joke. Moving on, the woman then comes in and she talks about moral superiority. And she says that antinatalists feel that they are morally superior and they flog it on their heads. It's not about moral superiority, honestly. It is about taking a path of minimal suffering. It is about reducing suffering. So I don't care if you are morally superior, inferior, whatever. as long as you're reducing suffering. Then she says, quite contradicting her own point, that antinatalists are thinkers, they are generally nice people, and because they are not producing children, we are going to lose good quality people, and the people who are not thinkers and people who don't care much, who are not nice people, are reproducing, and in the end we will end up with low quality people. And then the man gives antinatalism an analogy of mental virus, which is going to be wiped out anyway, as if why there aren't any viruses, they've all been wiped out. But he gives antinatalism an analogy of mental virus, which, by the way, any idea can be a mental virus. It is called memes. Read the Selfish Gene, chapter 11. It's a meme. You can say any idea as as mental virus. You can say liberalism as mental virus. You can say anything that. And then he joins the woman saying that antinatalists are responsible for removing good people from the gene pool, and so it is wrong. Now, many points to be made here. First is that you are alluding eugenics. Okay, having good gene pool, promoting good gene pool, and not letting bad gene pool, and etc. etc. That's eugenics. We've tried that about 70 years ago, and we saw the results of that. So I don't want to go there. The second thing is the assumption you were making as is that thinking of a person and being nice is genetic, which is not really true. And the third thing, the contradiction which comes from all of it, is that because antinatalists are thinkers and they are nice people, they should bring more children into existence, which can balance, as they say, they use the word balance, the so called low quality people. And while at the same time denying the effects of overpopulation. Is that the solution? Is that what we want? I think that's a wrong way to look at it. The correct solution is, first of all, to educate more people. It is obvious that more educated women have less children. It is quite evident. You can look up the data. So we want to promote education. We want to promote rational thinking. We want to promote thinking which is not based on religion or dogma or anything. We want to promote free thinking. And then, if if you think so that there are children who are at disadvantage in the world, and there are, then try and adopt. You know, it's not wrong that if you don't adopt, but if you really think that something should be done, adoption is one of the ways. Contributing to child charity is another way, but definitely bringing more children just to balance those children who are already deprived is, it's not a rational idea. So then they go on to, then finally they express their fear that if you agree with antinatalism, you would finally reach to a concept called aphilism. And what aphilism is an idea of one person called Gary Mosher. But what really it says is that the all of the nature which has evolved, all the biological evolution which has happened is based on suffering. Like, it causes a whole lot of suffering and cruelty, and so it is all, we have to reduce that suffering, and the way to do that suffering, reduce that suffering, is not to continue this cycle. Does not necessarily mean killing, but to phase it out through non-procreation. That's the central idea of aphilism. First criticism, what they fear is that if you start adopting antinatalism, you will lead to aphilism, which is a disastrous idea, which will make you uncomfortable, which that woman does not like, and so you should not go on path of antinatalism. Now, that is not the reason to invalidate antinatalism. You can't say you might not like special theory of relativity. So you can't say that uh, if you adopt the idea of Newtonian mechanics, and then if you adopt the idea of I'm sorry, I'm going a little detail, but then you adopt the accept that speed of light is constant, you would finally lead to special relativity, or finally then lead to general relativity. And because you don't like special and general relativity, you should not accept the idea that speed of light is constant or Newtonian mechanics works. That's not how you decide validity or invalidity of an ideology. You decide validity or invalidity of an ideology on its own terms, not on what consequences it is going to lead to. Then they say aphilism is is self contradictory, because they say that if life is meaningless and if the universe is purposeless, why does aphilism care about stopping life? Why? What is the point? If life is meaningless, what is the point of stopping life? It doesn't make sense. Why? Why? Well, the point is that life is meaningless, but it causes suffering. And the idea is to reduce suffering, and that is why we want to stop life. Otherwise, if a meaningless activity is going to continue, it doesn't matter. Earth revolving around sun is quite meaningless and without any purpose. And aphilism does not say that we should try and stop Earth revolving around sun, irrespective of whether it is possible or not, because it is meaningless and it is not causing any suffering to any sentient being. But life, being meaningless, futile, still causes suffering to sentient beings, and that is the reason aphilism is saying we should try and stop this cycle. Then they have some strawman argument about determinism, which I'm not going to go about because it was, clearly very strawman, really very distorted argument for their own purpose. Finally, they say that antinatalism is wrong because even if we stop reproducing, and even if we finally phase out all the life in order to reduce suffering, there would still be some life somewhere on some other planet in the universe which will continue. So, what is the point? Well, I don't understand how you can invalidate antinatalism with this argument. If there is rape happening in your neighbor's house, does that justify, and you can't stop that rape happening in your neighbor's house, does that justify for a rape happening in your own house? If there is someone getting slaughtered in some other place, some ISIS terrorist is slaughtering someone, does that justify you slaughtering someone just because you can't stop them slaughtering someone? That is exactly what you're saying here. And I'm ignoring the fact that we haven't found any life. Even if we do, and even if that life is based on sentience and based on suffering like we have here, and even if you can't stop it there, there is no reason for us not to stop it here. Finally, they say that antinatalism is invalid because people are not going to stop reproducing anyway. Well, that's not the point. You can say that about any ideology. You can say that theft is not wrong because people are not going to stop stealing anyway. No, that's not how you say. You say that theft is wrong. People are still not going to stop stealing, but we should try and promote the idea that theft is wrong, so that people get educated about it and start independently thinking and understand why theft is wrong. So similarly, even if people are not going to stop reproducing, it does not mean that antinatalism is invalid. In fact, it means that how much more we need to do in order to promote antinatalism. Then he also says that natalism also is invalid because you can't force people to reproduce. And I obviously agree, you can't force people either way. I completely agree. But he is contradicting with his own earlier statement about assumed consent. If you think mothers in general are happy, parents in general are happy to have parents, people in general are happy to be born, and you think there is a concept of assumed consent you can take in order to bestow benefit on someone, why can you not force people to have children? So these are the points. Let me know what do you think. Thanks.